This is a pound of muscle and this is a pound of fat. And if you don't have adequate protein on board, guess which one your body is going to burn first? It's not the body fat. No, it's the muscle. Your body will eat its own muscle to keep you alive. When it comes to body composition and losing weight, maintaining muscle, changing your shape, protein is king. It's all about the protein. You know that you're prioritizing protein, yet you're still not getting the results. In this episode, I'm going to help you understand the biggest mistakes when it comes to protein that you might be making that are preventing you from achieving your goals. And I know all about this with firsthand knowledge because I was making all those mistakes. I was listening to the same research, the same suggestions. I was following the recommendations. I was killing myself to hit my protein goals. And despite that, I was gaining weight. So today, not only am I going to share with you like the biggest mistakes that people are making as it pertains to protein, backed by research and studies, of course, recent research. Today, I'm also going to share with you one of the biggest mistakes that I think a lot of you might be making. It's not well researched. I'm going to tell you that, but it's a mistake I was making. And the more women I talk to, the more I find out they've been doing this too, especially women of a certain age. So I'm going to share that with you. I'm going to tell you how I fixed it. And I think not only could it help you break that plateau that you've experienced, or maybe even weight gain that you've been experiencing, but even more important, I think it's going to help you reduce the amount of stress and the confusion around protein consumption. I mean, because there's science and then there's common sense. And today we're going to dig into all of those things here on The Chalene Show. Okay, as per usual, I know you're here for the facts and you love to hear that these things are substantiated by research, but you don't necessarily need for me to quote every single citation of every single study. Nonetheless, I am going to provide them for you below in my show notes. I just think I'm not going to waste any time by going over every single study in detail. I'm going to give you the TLDR version of these studies. And these are all studies that have been published in most of them in the last 3 years, a couple in the last 5 years. TLDR, do you know what that means? Do you know what that stands for? Are you hip to that term? It means too long didn't read. And you're my kind of girl or guy. Like you love it where it's like, okay, let's just get to the facts. The first mistake that I want to address is what's known as the protein leverage hypothesis. And this is a fancy word that basically means when we're not prioritizing protein first, our bodies typically crave anything that's higher in sugar, like carbohydrates. That's just normal, right? Like you're not going, you know what I'm really craving right now? I'm really craving a big hunk of meat. Like maybe you are. But more often than not, we as Americans, we're consuming foods that are higher in glucose, higher in sugar. We want crackers and cakes and cookies and crunchy things and sometimes bread and fruits and vegetables. And because we aren't starting first with protein, our bodies are biologically wired to seek out protein. So we will eat. This is the hypothesis that we will eat and eat and eat until our bodies have enough protein, which leads to people just generally overeating because they're not tracking, they're not looking at, they're not prioritizing their protein. Makes sense, right? Like stated another way, our bodies are always seeking to be satiated. And if we're not prioritizing protein and we're just eating our carbohydrates and our fats, we don't recognize that from a biological standpoint, we are hardwired to seek satiety. Like, think about it. Have you ever had one of those days where you're like, I'm just so stressed and I don't know what it is. I'm just so hungry. I just keep eating and eating. And I just don't feel satiated. I don't feel satisfied yet. And so you might keep grazing or you might even just keep eating, but you just don't feel satiated. You don't feel satisfied. Well, the basis of the protein leverage hypothesis is such that a lot of us are in this state, and what we don't realize we're seeking is protein, and that we could probably, we are likely overeating because we're seeking that satiety. And until our bodies reach a certain level of protein consumption, we just keep eating. And it's really easy. It's very common to be over consuming your calories, which puts you in a major surplus, which causes weight gain, or it certainly does not allow us to create a deficit that we need to create weight loss or loss of body fat. A study published in the Royal Society in 2023 basically found that when humans are not getting enough protein in their diet, highly processed foods rich in carbohydrates and fats when people are consuming those kinds of foods, they will compensate by overconsumption in order to meet their protein needs. And another study confirmed this, published in 2022 in the Journal of Sports and Science Medicine, and found basically the same thing, that people who were eating a diet that was lower in protein tended to keep eating and eating and eating until they actually did hit what they needed in terms of protein. Now, are they doing this knowingly? No. And you may be doing it unknowingly as well. The findings suggest that if we have an insufficient amount of protein in our system, our bodies crave more carbohydrates and fats. Certainly been true for me. And here's where this really hits home for, especially for women who are perimenopausal and menopausal. A study that was published in 2023 in February found that this is incredibly amplified by age. So as we're aging, this becomes more and more predominant. We want more carbs, we want more fats, and therefore our bodies still need the proteins, so we're over consuming calories, which is like a double whammy for those of us who are in menopause. The next biggest mistake, and this should be no surprise to you, is simply not consuming enough protein. And we've got brand new science to support this data, to support the idea that if you want to permanently change your metabolism, if whether you're on Ozempic or you're restricting calories or you're just trying to move more and lose weight, you have got to prioritize the consumption of protein. And with a recent study that just came out in 2025, it's more obvious than ever. The Cleveland Clinic reported just last month from their study that inadequate protein intake led to muscle loss and a diminished metabolic rate. In other words, you're not going to burn as many calories. You are less efficient. You are less metabolically efficient and flexible if you're not consuming enough protein. If you're not consuming enough protein, what's happening is you're losing muscle. And as we age, as I'm going to point out to you, it gets even worse. So now more than ever, it is critical that you're consuming enough protein. And I know you know this, but muscle is metabolically active tissue. Muscle burns more calories than fat. Let's take a look at some muscle, shall we? This is a pound of muscle and this is a pound of fat. And if you don't have adequate protein on board, guess which one your body is going to burn first? It's not the body fat. No, it's the muscle. Your body will eat its own muscle to keep you alive. And it's muscle that helps you to keep a faster metabolism. It's muscle that helps you to manage your weight. So if you are trying to recomposition your body, if you're trying to get a lower body fat, if you want to get a faster metabolism, like hello, duh, who doesn't want a faster metabolism? This one needs a faster metabolism. This is my dog, Penelope. Penelope, what are you doing? She's so girlfriend needs more muscle and a faster metabolism. She needs more energy. So she really needs to we've changed her diet and she is going to prioritize protein. But if you're not prioritizing protein, if you're not consuming enough protein, then what we know is your body is going to lose muscle at a much higher rate as you age. And you're probably wondering, how much protein do we need to consume? Okay, so I want to make this super simple. And you can watch a bunch of videos and you can hear about percentages and points and all these things, and it becomes a mathematical equation. I don't like math. I don't like turning mealtime into math. While yes, we do need to be aware of these things because we're just surrounded by carbohydrates and fats, and we kind of need to know how much protein we're consuming on a regular basis, I want to simplify this for you as much as possible. Generally speaking, if you get 1 gram of protein per pound of either ideal body weight or current lean body mass, I'll explain that in further detail in just a moment, you're going to be doing great. And if you can aim for even just a little bit higher than that, like don't even worry about the percentages. If you're just like, okay, let's just say, let's use round numbers. Let's say your goal is to get 120 grams of protein. If you're like, that's my goal, and I'm going to up it, I'm going to make it 125 and just see if I can hit that, you're going to be doing great. I don't want you to have to take out a calculator unless that's what you want to do. Like some people are really down to the brass nuts. Is it called brass tacks? Some people really like to get down to the brass tacks and look at the finite details. In fact, research published in 2024 in Frontiers in Nutrition found that people on low protein diets lost significantly more lean muscle tissue, not fat. Muscle. They lost muscle if they weren't getting enough of their protein. And those who are on a higher protein diet, up to 35% of their total calories coming from protein, had far more muscle. Not surprisingly, those who had a higher percentage of protein consumption each day had far better results. They lost more weight and they lost more body fat, being able to conserve muscle tissue. Okay, but as it pertains to how much should you consume, some things that are just like super general, and you're going to remember this, you're not going to forget this. The more active you are, the more protein you need. The more you're wanting to build muscle and lose body fat, the more protein you need. The younger you are, if you're a young athlete, yeah, you need more protein. Young athletes and just older active people, we need the most protein. In fact, one study found that those who are not consuming enough protein and doing a calorie restrictive diet, or just not eating enough calories because maybe they're doing a GLP, so they've just have, like Ozempic or tirzepatide, they've kind of lost their appetite, and they're, especially the people who are losing weight fast, they are losing muscle at a rate of up to 50, not all, but those who are not consuming enough protein risk losing muscle at a rate of up to 50% of their weight loss. So imagine if you've lost 10 pounds and 5 of that was muscle. That's not good, my friends. It's at this point in the video where I hate to be the bearer of bad news. So I just want to forewarn you that if you're not subscribed and you've already watched to this part of the video, what's going to happen if you're not subscribed is this is going to show up on the front of both of your knees. Like you're just going to have a big blob of fat on both of your knees. I don't make the rules. And if you are subscribed, this is what your hamstrings are going to look like smooth and strong. Just say, I don't make the rules. So you better double check right now and make sure you're subscribed. And I'll just bet you never watched a YouTube video where the creator was so thirsty that they made up some random like tale of bad karma just to get you to subscribe. I mean, whatever I have to do, I'm not above it. The third most common mistake that you might be making as it pertains to your protein is not consuming protein right after you work out. Not exactly after you work out, but within a short window of time after your workout. And I always wondered, like, is this a myth? Is there really research to support this? There is. A study published in the Journal of Sports Science and Medicine in 2020 highlighted the importance of consuming protein after exercise to maximize muscle repair and growth. This process is called muscle protein synthesis. It's critical for maintaining lean mass. So if that's what you're trying to do, you are someone who's like, okay, I'm trying to change my shape. You can absolutely put on more muscle now than you did in your 20s and your 30s and your 40s if you're doing it the right way. And one of the most important things you can do is make sure that you're consuming between 15 to 25 grams of protein within 30 minutes to 2 hours after your workout. Now, I'm not talking necessarily about doing a zone 2 walking session. I'm talking about lifting or something where you're doing some kind of intense cardio, something that would build muscle. And if you're watching this channel, you're prioritizing strength training too. Because let's face it, I'm going to go on a little tangent now. If you need to get your cardio in, like your zone 2 cardio, and you're like, okay, should I do my zone 2 cardio? Should I go on my walk or should I lift my weights? You know the answer. You should be lifting your weights because when you're lifting weights, that's putting you in zone 2 anyway. So it's like you get 2 for the price of 1 and you're building muscle. When we're walking, which is awesome, it's important. I want you to get your cardio in daily, but it's not building muscle. You need to build muscle by going to the gym or by picking up a heavy set of weights and following a program that includes progressive overload. By the way, progressive overload, it's one of those terms that I just assume that you have listened to enough episodes and you know what progressive overload is. But I was also thinking maybe I need to do like a whole episode about how to create a plan that follows progressive overload. Obviously, if you are in one of my programs, so Phase It is my exercise program. And everything I create there is strength training for perimenopausal and menopausal women, and it's all progressive overload. So if you're like, I don't know, am I doing progressive overload? If you're in Phase It, you absolutely are. But you want to be doing progressive overload because that's going to help you build muscle. But within 30 minutes to 2 hours, closer to the 30-minute mark, you want to make sure that you're giving your muscles what they need to grow and to repair. And that, my friends, is protein. Published in March of 2025 in Research Starters, they called this the anabolic window. I love that. It's a period within 30 minutes to 2 hours after exercise when you need to consume protein because this enhances the recovery and your body's glycogen replenishment, meaning like This is how you get your energy back. And it's not just protein. Ideally, you want to have a nice balanced meal, prioritizing protein, but also including some carbohydrates, because another study in November of 2024 found that exercise that combined both protein and carbohydrates post exercise further improved muscle repair and exercise endurance. Not only that, but it reduced post exercise soreness. And even better than that, the combination of the protein and the carbohydrates, again, within that short period of time after your workout, was found to boost insulin release, which helped to basically shuttle the amino acids into your muscles. In other words, nothing works in a silo. That's why, like, all of our hormones, they need to be balanced, because if one is off, the whole system's off. If you're just focused on one, if you're only focused on protein, that's a problem. You still need the other nutrients. Remember for a little while there when we were like solely focused on keto and that's all anybody worried about was fats? I mean, just, we have to remember common sense and think about, like, okay, we actually need all of these nutrients. Obviously, we want to prioritize protein for muscle synthesis. This next one is huge. And I want you to really self reflect, especially if you've been trying to troubleshoot why it is you haven't been able to lose weight. That's what I had to do when I was in perimenopause. And this is just like 3 or 4 years ago. I was doing, in my estimation, I was like, I'm doing everything. I'm doing the HRT. I'm eating the protein. I'm doing my workouts. I'm doing the strength training. I'm, tick, tick, tick. I'm doing all the things. Why aren't I losing weight? It took me kind of going through each one of those phases one at a time and being very honest and troubleshooting and being very precise. Like, okay, where am I missing the mark? Where is it? I think I'm following the recommendations, but I'm doing it a little bit off from what people are the experts are recommending. And I've done a couple of episodes breaking that down, but as it pertains to protein, one of the mistakes that I was making was this one, and it is setting the wrong protein goal. So I had been setting a goal based on my ideal weight versus setting a goal based on my lean body mass. Okay, so if you're not a personal trainer, let me break down exactly what that means. So let's just go round numbers. Let's just say that you weigh 150 pounds right now, but you want to weigh 125 pounds. Okay, you weigh 150 pounds. We need to know what your lean body mass is. You can estimate your lean mass, like how much of your body, if you weigh 150 pounds, how much of that 150 pounds is muscle? That's all that we're talking about when we're saying lean mass, right? So one way you can do this, it's not 100% precise, but it's not bad, is take a photo of yourself in your underwear and upload it to ChatGPT and say, here's my age, here's my height, here's my weight, estimate my lean body mass. Tell me how many pounds you estimate I weigh, or how many pounds of lean muscle, lean body mass I have. And again, it's pretty close. I mean, it's not like 100% accurate, but it's a starting point. I've done it after doing, not a DEXA scan, I did it after doing an in-body body fat caliper testing. It's like sends electrodes through your body. Some of the higher end gyms like Lifetime has them. I have an in-body scale that I use now at home. And using ChatGPT, it was only off by 2%, which isn't bad. Frankly, it's not bad. Um, Another way you can do it, obviously, is to purchase a scale that takes into account your body fat. They're not 100% accurate. The most accurate is to do a DEXA scan. And if you're a woman over 40, I want you to get a DEXA scan. I'm sure the last time you did a breast, what's it called? Mammogram. Mammogram, yeah. Oh, she's alive. Everyone, she's alive. Speaking of mammograms, this poor girl has had so many litters because she was what do they call them? Like a backyard breeder. She was the mom. She had 1,000,001 litters. This poor girl. Anyways, back to mammograms. When you get your mammogram, your doctor is probably going to suggest you also do a DEXA scan at the same time, and that is because we're looking at bone density. If you're a woman who did a lot of dieting, you did a lot of intense cardio, if you went through periods where you were restricting so much that you may have even lost your period, something that's called amenorrhea, there's a very high likelihood that you may have osteoporosis, maybe osteopenia, the beginning signs of osteoporosis. So they'll suggest you get a DEXA scan. When you get your DEXA scan, they're also going to tell you exactly what's going on with your bones, how much water you have in your body, how much body fat you have, and how much lean body tissue you have. So get one. It's probably covered by your insurance. If it's not, I see them advertised all the time for like under $100, like $125 I've seen them. And it's really valuable. You don't have to get them every year, but super valuable to have, especially if you want to know your accurate body fat. Now, here's what I would do. I would get that DEXA scan, and then I would use, one of those very affordable scales that you can buy on Amazon. I will link to the in-body body fat scale below the one that I have. It's got these handles that you hold on to. It's pretty accurate. And then when you do your DEXA scan, go home, get on your scale, and then you'll have a gauge. You'll go like, oh, okay, this is pretty close. It's up 3 or down 2, whatever. And then you can use that as your gauge. Now, once you know how much lean body mass you have, assuming you don't want to lose any, why would you ever want to lose any muscle? If anything, you might want to even increase, right? You might want to increase the amount of muscle that you have. So take a look at how much lean muscle you have. And the other great thing that's so cool about ChatGPT is you don't need a personal trainer. You would just put the information into ChatGPT. You would say, I weigh 150 pounds. Roughly speaking, I have about 125 pounds of lean muscle. And I want to maintain that, which means you want to lose 25 pounds of fat. That's what you're telling ChatGPT. And I would ask it, based on that, calculate how much protein I should be consuming per day. And you're going to get a number of grams. Now, you can also go by a percentage, but what I'm talking about right now is setting a goal based on maintaining your lean muscle. The mistake I think that so many people make, again, I'm not here to tell you what your goal should be, but if your goal is simply weight loss and you're setting your macros according to the weight that you want to be, you're not factoring in how much muscle you want to maintain and how much protein you need in order to maintain that muscle. And that is really important, especially if you want to come off the GLP-1, especially if you want a faster metabolism, especially if you want to change your shape and just be a stronger human. I want to age powerfully. I mean, aging grace, there's a cute little old lady who is at the facility where my father-in-law is at. She's in a wheelchair. She always has her nails painted. She is so frail and she is so graceful. She really is. She's aged gracefully. I don't want that. I want to be buff. I want to be able to be sitting on the floor at age 90 and be able to get up without assistance. Aging gracefully, that maybe that's great for you. I don't want that. I want to age powerfully. In order to do that, I need muscle. And that's why I think it's, in my opinion, if you want to age powerfully, you should set a goal based on your lean body tissue and how much of it you want to maintain and or perhaps even increase. Because if you've never lifted weights, you want to ask, and you don't need an expert to know any of this. You've got one. Use ChatGPT. Use AI. It's brilliant for this stuff. And to support that, a study from 2022 in the Journal of Sarcopenia and Muscle emphasized that adjusting protein intake based on your lean body mass as opposed to your ideal body weight is more accurate than using your total body weight. That makes sense, doesn't it? This approach avoids overestimating protein needs. And the reason why this matters is because if you're overweight and you're just going by your body weight or even your desired body, your ideal body weight, you're likely going to have too high of a protein number. And when your protein number is too high, it's more than what you actually need to be able to maintain the muscle. And I know what you're thinking, but wait, I thought more protein was good to some extent. But if you're consuming too much protein, again, most people, in order to have that much protein, they've also got to up their carbohydrates and they up their fats. And you can see what happens. Now you're over consuming. You're getting so much protein, but you're also increasing all your other macronutrients because it's almost impossible to just eat straight protein. Most people have to incorporate that into other forms of their meals, and that may be why you haven't been seeing the results you'd like. And these studies didn't just look at people who were had a lot of weight to lose or had more body fat to lose. It actually also looked at masters athletes. So athletes who are in older categories who train regularly, and they found that their average protein intake was between 0.65 and 1 gram per pound of lean body mass. And when they did that, and when they maintained those numbers, they were able to maintain muscle and perform better. Another thing you need to be aware of as we're aging, especially women, is our gut health, right? So, one of the things I've learned in interviewing so many of these doctors and experts is our bodies just do not absorb nutrients the same way. So it's not just about eating the protein, it's making sure that you've got a healthy gut lining and that you're actually breaking down the protein. And how do you know if you're not, right? Well, a couple things that are telltale signs. If you feel incredibly bloated, you just are like, my stomach feels hard. Like you know that you didn't overeat the day before, you know you're eating something healthy, but like your stomach just feels like distended and hard. That's one way of knowing. Obviously, if you're gassy, and all of these things are signs that your body might be having a difficult time breaking down the enzymes in meats, especially. Proteins are more challenging to break down, and so you are burning more calories while you're breaking them down. But if your body isn't truly absorbing them, if your body doesn't produce the enzymes you need to break those proteins down, then you're not getting the same proteins in your diet that somebody else is eating the same foods. That is why I assume in part these studies are showing that as we age, especially women, we need to increase our protein intake, like perhaps even beyond 1 gram per pound of lean body mass. So one of the things I started taking is an enzyme. It's like a gut enzyme, basically. It helps you to break down any proteins. The thing I noticed right away is flatter stomach. Just because I love steak, I love chicken, I love meat proteins, animal proteins. I love the amino acid profiles of that. So I started taking, I don't know if you can see, if you're watching on YouTube, I'll show you. It's called Mazymes, meaning like enzymes. And this is an incredible, you just take 3 capsules, 2 to 3 capsules at each meal when you're going to have protein, which hopefully is at each and every meal. This has been a game changer, and I haven't talked about it, and I realized, like, oh, yeah, when someone asked me recently how I deal with the bloating related to protein, I'm like, how have I never mentioned this? Anyways, if this is something you wanna try, Bioptimizers is a phenomenal sponsor of our show. We love Bioptimizers. Why? Because if you don't love this, they give you a 365-day money-back guarantee. I love a company that'll put a a guarantee back on something like that says a lot. I've met the founders of this company. I've had them on the show before. These are 2 people who are very dedicated to the research, like triple lab testing, everything, and they've just got some really remarkable products. I just can't believe I've never talked about this one. But anyways, it's called Mazymes, and you can get it by going to chalene.com/digest. How easy is that? Chalene.com/digest. That gets you 10% off plus a few other goodies. So again, it's chalene.com/digest. The next mistake that you might be making when it comes to your protein is not spreading it out across every single meal. So a lot of times, especially if you're just focused on proteins, you're like, okay, there was this very popular trend in the 2000s that was called if it fits my macros. So basically, people would eat really unhealthy, overly processed protein, any food they want. Like, for example, they might have like French fries and a burger. And because the burger had a lot of protein, they were like, oh, I didn't worry about it because I hit my macros. Like they were just focused on their macros and not at all looking at the type and the quality of food that they were eating. And what happens is, first of all, when you're eating macronutrients that are just loaded with inflammatory ingredients, you're going to spike your cortisol, you're going to be inflamed, and it's really hard to lose weight. Nonetheless, what many people would do is eat whatever meals they wanted to, and they wouldn't think about their protein, and then they would kind of like cram all of their protein requirements to hit their macros in 1 or 2 meals. And the problem with doing that, as we talked about earlier, is that your body needs protein on board, especially to repair your muscles, especially after a workout. So it is really important that we're giving our muscles what they need like all day long. First thing in the morning, you're waking up after you've been fasting all night because you've been sleeping. In fact, you know what? Let's talk to my friend, Dr. Stephanie Estima. She's got a great show. It's called Better. It's here on YouTube. You can listen to her podcast on whatever app you listen to your podcasts on. Let's get Dr. Stephanie's advice on this topic.
One of the biggest mistakes that women make when it comes to consuming protein is to actually look at protein as a percentage versus breaking it out and looking at it as a gram focus.
Can I lose weight and body fat and avoid losing muscle? I guess stated another way, could a woman, not a beginner, but a woman who's already pretty fit, already lifting regularly, who wants to just drop body fat, can she drop body fat without losing muscle?
A woman can absolutely put on more muscle being in a caloric deficit, even if she's lean, right? Even if she is a resistance trained individual or has some experience in the gym and has been strength training for a long time.
And it's not just her opinion. A research paper from 2022 published in the Journal of Clinical Nutrition found that spreading out protein evenly across our meals maximized protein synthesis. Again, helping our bodies to use the protein to maintain muscle and not use muscle as fuel, right? We want to use body fat as fuel. We want to use glycogen as fuel. What we don't want to do is have our bodies resort to using muscle. As a general rule of thumb, at each meal, my goal is to get in at least 25 grams of protein every meal. Now, usually I'm going to get in more than that, but like, even if it's just like okay, I want kind of a hearty snack, I'm going to make sure I lead with protein. Now, as promised, I want to share with you a big mistake that once I realized I was doing this and I changed it, the weight started to come off so much easier. Number one, and that's important. But number two is, my relationship with food changed. I had so much less stress. This is really, really important because I think so many of you might be doing the same thing. And I don't know that we need research to prove it. I think there's enough of us who have connected in this community and said, like, oh my God, Shalene, that is me. So let me tell you what I was doing. Again, in the 2000s was when we all started obsessing about macros, right? Especially in the late 2000s. And this is at the height of me doing fitness infomercials, and everybody was talking about your macros. And if you really wanted to get lean and lose weight the right way, you had to track your macros. So, and this is especially true for those of you you've been there. Now, if you've never tracked your macros before, you don't have to worry about this. I'm speaking directly to those of you who have been caught up in that and you've hit a wall, like you're not losing weight despite tracking your macros. So I was doing that like a fiend. I'd even hired a personal trainer to help me dial them in even more. She was someone who trained fitness competitors. I'm like, if anybody knows how to help people dial in their macros, this woman knows how to. And what she had me do was very consistent with what I was doing myself. It was like I needed more confirmation. And every single day, at the end of the day, when I would open up Fitness Pal, which is where I, kept my track on my meals for the day, I would total everything up. I would total up as I went, but like at the end of the day is when I would look to see like, okay, did I hit them? And if there were 30 days in a month, I probably had 2 days out of 30 where it was like perfect. More often than not, I was like over by 5 or under by 10 or under by 30, and you're like, "Oh, I'm just not even hungry. I wanna go to bed, and I didn't hit my macros." So, I have a choice now. I can down a protein shake that I'm not in the mood to have, or eat a protein bar that I don't feel like eating, or I can just feel like I failed, And so more often than not, I'd be like, "Okay, I need muscle. I'm just gonna consume whatever protein it is." And I would do that over and over and over again. And over time, you're just routinely and regularly over-consuming your calories. And even if you are tracking, I don't know too many people who accurately track every single morsel. You're gonna miss some things, right? And so then you're like, "Oh, I hit my calories for the day." It made every meal feel like it was a mathematical equation. I would have to go like, "Okay." And this is like before AI really. So I'd be like, "Okay, so what can I eat and how many grams of protein does it have?" And then because oftentimes like when you're eating out in the wild or you're making something at home from scratch, it was difficult and cumbersome and a pain in the butt to have to calculate all of your macros, especially if you were eating out, which made me then afraid of food because I don't know. I can't sit down at a restaurant and just eat that because I don't know how to calculate my macros. I could be way over. I'm going to be way over or way under. I don't know. And so therefore I dreaded going out to meals. I didn't like how cumbersome it was to always constantly be taking pictures of QR codes and adding up the calories and looking on the backs of packages and spending all this time on my freaking phone to mathematically figure out if I had more carbohydrates I need to eat or fewer carbs or more fat, less protein. Like it just drove me nuts. And because of that, I stopped eating like real food because it was like, okay, it's just easier to have a shake because I know exactly to the number how many grams is in this. I'm not going to eat I'll eat this protein bar. I'll eat this bag of protein chips because I know exactly the macronutrients in it. And it really did a number on me and my relationship with food. I was seriously afraid to just eat healthy, unprocessed food, even if it just grew from the ground, because I didn't know. And the unknown is sometimes scary. And it was, again, about 2 years ago that I decided to stop doing that. And I adopted the approach of just sitting down at every meal and giving myself permission to have common sense and say, I'm just going to start with a big dose of protein. Like, I don't have to freak myself out and go, oh no, is it 5 ounces or 4 ounces of chicken? Who freaking cares? Like, my body is going to figure this out. If I start every meal with a big, healthy dose of protein, I'm probably going to be somewhere between 20 to 35 grams of protein. And if I start with that, I'm going to be satiated. I'm not going to be craving the carbohydrates. So I would start with a big, protein first, prioritize the protein. Then I would go to healthy carbohydrates, typically in the form of fibers like dark leafy greens. I love lentils. I love just anything that's yummy and delicious and grows from the ground. I try to make that my second priority. And then after that, if I wanna have carbs, I can have carbs. I don't freak out about it. Now that might not work for you. Maybe you need something far more structured. If you've never looked at your macronutrients, if you don't know, if you haven't become accustomed to knowing, like, how much protein is this, I would recommend, in fact, you tracking your macros for at least a couple of weeks to get a sense. Like, right now, I can put, up like, 4 big scoops of protein or like cottage cheese into a bowl, and I know that's a cup, and I know how much protein is in a cup of cottage cheese. I know that a typical breast of chicken is somewhere between 4 to 6 ounces. Like, I know what an 8-ounce piece of steak looks like. So, if you do this even just for a couple of weeks, you're gonna be able to eyeball your protein portions. And if you start every meal with a protein portion, you're probably gonna come pretty close to your macros. But again, if you've never done this, sure, track your macros for a couple of weeks so you get accustomed to it, so you understand, like, wow, I'm really way off or I'm really way over. I recently learned that American women, when they're left to their own accord, consume between 40 and 69 grams of protein per day, which is drastically under the requirements in order to maintain and build muscle. So left to our own accord, meaning if you've never tracked, if you're not prioritizing protein, you're not alone if you have very little muscle because your body doesn't have the nutrients it needs to make muscle. The bottom line is this: when it comes to weight loss, there's weight loss and then there's a loss of body fat. You have to decide which you want. I know for me, I don't want to lose muscle. I do not want to lose the one thing that is the key to my living and aging powerfully. So I never say I want to lose weight. If anything, I want to lose body fat. I don't want to lose muscle. If you do not want to lose muscle, it's time to do some troubleshooting and ask yourself, okay, where are things off? Am I over consuming my calories? And that's why I can't lose weight. Because in order to lose weight, we've got to be in a calorie deficit. Bottom line, you have to decide for yourself, do you want to lose weight or do you want to lose body fat? I hope your answer is body fat. I hope that you want to lose this and you want to maintain this, because maintaining this is the key to aging powerfully. Losing this is what's gonna put you in a smaller package, it's gonna make you look better, it's gonna make you feel better. This stuff is inflammatory, this stuff gives us cellulite, this stuff doesn't make us happy, this stuff is the stuff that kills us. This is the stuff that keeps us I mean, we need a little bit of both, right? But, like, you don't wanna lose this. We can all probably afford to lose some of this. In order to do that, we need to be in a deficit. Yes, we have to be in some type of caloric deficit. In order to get into that caloric deficit, you've got to fine tune things and make sure you're getting enough protein so you don't lose this. Otherwise, then you're just randomly losing weight and you're too smart for that. You are too intelligent. You know too much now to just make it your goal to lose weight. Your goal should be to lose body fat. In order to lose body fat, we've got to get into a deficit, and we want to get into the right kind of deficit where we're not so low that we don't have the reserves on board to build and grow and repair our muscle. Dr. Stephanie Estima is a former fitness competitor. So if any population really understands what it means to lose weight, lose body fat, and not lose muscle, it's definitely fitness competitors. So I asked her to weigh in on this topic. I might have imagined this, but you've done fitness competitions, correct?
I did, yeah.
You know that period of time, like in the whatever 10 days before competitors hit the
Ugh.
stage and they're super lean and striated and
Mhm.
look freaking ripped. Is it typical that especially for a woman in that stage just before she takes the stage, is she typically losing muscle in order to shred that way?
It's usually what we're trying to do in that, like, this is, by the way, disclaimer, this is very unhealthy. Like, bodybuilding is an extreme sport. I
So
don't
glad you said
recommend
that. Yeah,
it's like,
I
I do
agree.
not recommend it. I will say again, someone who has suffered with very low self-esteem is probably what attracted me to that stage initially. But that being said, it's a very extreme sport. What you're trying to do in peak week and really in the dieting down phase leading up to getting on stage is preserving as much muscle tissue as you can, and you're trying to get rid of water, right? You're trying to get
Mm,
rid of subcutaneous water so that the muscle
okay.
shows. It was all about getting rid of water, which is, you drink like gallons and gallons and gallons of water and then you drink nothing. So it's very extreme, not safe. Do not recommend, would not do it again.
Finally, I want to make this simple for you. So here's my recommendation. I would aim, if it were me, I just think that we can use our common sense. Start every meal with protein. Start by trying to get in like 25 to 35 grams of protein at every meal. Number two, know your lean body mass so that you have an adequate representation of how much protein you should be getting per day, how much protein you need per day in order to maintain your muscle and to not overconsume calories so that you can actually get into a deficit. Because if you want to lose that body fat, we got to get you into a deficit. In order to get you into a deficit, we can do that by eating less, and we can do that by moving more, and we can do that by having a faster metabolism. So the way to do all three is to make sure you're consuming protein, you're getting in your zone 2 cardio, which can be in the form of strength training, and you're building muscle with your strength training. By doing all three of those things, it makes it so much easier than just trying to restrict calories or just trying to exercise yourself to a different body. I know that there's math involved for some of you because you've never tracked this before, and that might be the path that you need to take. But for those of you who have done that and you grew up in the era like I did, where it's all that we focused on, I want to encourage you to improve your relationship with food and to just give yourself a break and to trust that you are smart enough. You've got so much common sense. You know how to figure this out. You know what your body needs. Let your body reset. Let your stress come down. Take the pressure off. Know that you will make the right decision. You feel satisfied and your body is going to begin to repair itself. You're going to begin to reduce your inflammation. Your muscles will begin to feel replenished. You're going to start going to the gym and building muscle and feeling more confident and no longer being controlled by, I don't know, silly rules about food and working out. Like, we really have to get back to common sense here. Like, the science and all the studies that I've linked below in this video, they're awesome. But at the end of the day, I want you to trust yourself. By the way, if what I'm describing is you and you really relate to that, I did a complete episode breaking down exactly how I track my macros, some of the protein meals that I eat. And so if you are somebody who's trying to break up with that like obsessive compulsive way of tracking macros and just like the math of it all, and you just need a break, but you also still need to make sure you're getting enough protein, I want you to check out the episode that I did specifically about that. It's kind of like the lazy girl's way of making sure you're getting enough protein without driving yourself crazy. And you can click right here if you want to check out the other video I did on protein.